Good evening and welcome to another edition of our show. I'm Chaplain Abel. Wish everyone had a pleasant week so far. Now that Super Tuesday is out of the way, people can concentrate more on other things that are going on before we have another Super Tuesday. And because of that, excuse me, I entitled my message this evening, You Can Make a Difference. And we'll be right back.
When storms assail the little ship you're sailing in, when darkness closes in and God cannot be found, and when you cannot understand life's meaning, and Satan tells you this time God's let you down, trust in God, though you are tempted sore. Trust in God in your raging war. Trust in God when your life has come apart. Keep on believing. You can safely trust in God. When faith is only words, life is so easy. But then the fire of God begins to burn. And as our words are tried, God is satisfied, because He sees now true faith is being formed. Trust in God, though you are tempted sore. Trust in God in your raging war. Trust in God when your life has come apart. Keep on believing. You can safely trust in God.
And that was Trust in God. Excuse me, this evening. Either have allergies or the remnants of a cold that's going. Well, like I mentioned, because of a lot of things that are going on, I entitled my message, You Can Make a Difference. Start off by way of an illustration. Minister John R. Ramsey once wrote, "For some time I have had a person provide me with a rose boutonniere to pin on the lapel of my suit every Sunday. Because I always got a flower on Sunday morning, I really did not think much of it. It was a nice gesture that I appreciated, but it became routine. One Sunday, however, what I considered ordinary became very special. As I was leaving the Sunday service, a young man approached me. He walked right up to me and said, 'Sir, what are you going to do with your flower?' At first I didn't know what he was talking about, but then I understood. The boy said, 'I would like it if you are just going to throw it away.' At this point I smiled and gladly told him that he could have my flower, casually asking him what he was going to do with it. The little boy, who was probably less than 10 years old, looked up at me and said, 'Sir, I'm going to give it to my granny. My mother and father got divorced last year. I was living with my mother, but when she married again, she wanted me to stay with my father. I lived with him for a while, but he said he could not stay, so he sent me to live with my grandmother. She is so good to me. She cooks for me and takes care of me. She has been so good to me that I want to give that pretty flower to her for loving me. When the little boy finished, I could hardly speak. My eyes filled with tears, and I knew I had been touched in the depths of my soul. I reached up and unpinned my flower. With the flower in my hand, I looked at the boy and said, "Son, that is the nicest thing I have ever heard. But you can't have this flower because it's not enough. If you look in front of the pulpit, you'll see a big bouquet of flowers. Different families buy them for the church each week. Please take those flowers to your granny because she deserves the very best." If I hadn't been touched enough already, he made one last statement, and I will always cherish it. He said, "What a wonderful day. I asked for one flower, but I got a beautiful bouquet." How often do you brighten up the lives of others with special acts of kindness? How often do you look for opportunities to touch lives? Folks, you can make a difference in the lives of people. You can make a difference in this world. You don't have to be perfect, rich, highly educated, in good health, or exceptionally intelligent. Regardless of who you are, where you live, or how often you have failed, you still can make a difference. This evening I will present 2 points on making a difference. First one, why should we bother making a difference? There are many reasons why we should bother to be difference makers, but here are 3 that are utmost importance. First, we should be difference makers because our world depends on it. Our world would never survive if people did not help one another. We need each other to survive. Where would this world be without Good Samaritans? What would have happened to the robbed, beaten, and half-dead man if the Good Samaritan hadn't stopped to help? Where would we be without the Mother Teresas of the world, who helped the dying, the poor, the sick, and afflicted children? Without compassionate people, the world disintegrates into chaos. We need to be difference makers because our world depends on it. Second, we should be difference makers because our fulfillment in life depends on it. Jesus never told his audience how the Good Samaritan felt when he left the inn and continued on his journey. But I am sure that he felt fulfilled because he had done something useful and good for his fellow man. Can you imagine how Paul felt when he finally delivered the money to the famine-stricken church in Jerusalem? I am sure he was glowing inside. When we help others, we help ourselves. A deep sense of satisfaction and fulfillment floods into our lives when we take the time and energy to do something worthwhile for others, just to lend them a hand. A Thanksgiving Day editorial in the newspaper told of a school teacher who asked their first graders to draw a picture of something they were thankful for. She thought of how little these children from the poor neighborhoods actually had to be thankful for. But she knew that most of them would draw pictures of turkeys on tables of food. The teacher was taken back with the picture Douglas handed in. A simple, childishly drawn hand. But whose hand? This class was captivated by the abstract image. I think it must be the hand of God that brings us food, said one child. A farmer, said another, because he grows the turkeys. Finally, when others were back at work, the teacher bent over Douglas's desk and asked whose hand it was. "It's your hand, teacher," he mumbled. She recalled that frequently at recess she had taken Douglas, the scrubby dessert child, by the hand. She often did that with the children, but it meant so much to Douglas. Out of all the things he could have been thankful for Thanksgiving, he was most thankful for his teacher's hand. Perhaps we can learn that it is not necessarily material possessions that people are in need of. They need a hand that reaches out to them with the love of Christ. Remember this: there is no better exercise for strengthening the heart than reaching down and lifting people up. Third, we should be difference makers because God expects it. Some of the last words that Jesus spoke while on earth are recorded in Matthew chapter 28 in verses 18 to 20. Then Jesus came to them and said, "All authority in heaven and on earth has been given to me. Therefore go and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I have commanded you. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age." Matthew 28, 18 to 20. Just before Jesus ascended into heaven, he told his disciples to go into the world and make disciples. To me, he commissioned all of us to go out into our homes, our neighborhoods, and our workplace and make a difference in the lives of people. Because you and I know that if we bring others to Jesus, he will make a difference in their lives. I want you to notice that he didn't say go and serve yourself. He didn't say go and make as much money as you can. He didn't say go and do whatever you want to do. No, Jesus gave us an assignment. Go and make a difference. Go and turn the world upside down with Christianity. Why should we be difference makers? Because our world depends on it. Because our fulfillment in life depends on it. Because God expects it. And we'll take a short break, and when we return, we'll go into the second of what kind of people does God use to be difference makers.
She's a big old ship, and she's setting my